Hi, Allison.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey.
Okay, I will say I might need a little bit of help because I'm trying to navigate from a hotel room. But everybody will be happy to know I'm in Washington, DC. That's the place that everybody should be right now. Crazy.
Sounds like fun, Allison.
Well, it sounds like more fun than it is, but yeah, definitely. So I do have access to agenda and everything like that. But if I might not be able to see full screen if people are raising their hands for comments. So if you guys could help me, Emily or Mitch or whoever is on as the host, that'd be great.
Can do. And real quick, can at the ACEH office, can you let us know who's there with you? I can't really see.
Yes, we have Roger Branson and our speaker, Jed Drolet.
Okay, great. And Jed, I have your presentation loaded into this one that's on the screen right now.
Okay, great.
I can just move through it, or you can share if you'd prefer.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just move through it, that's fine.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you guys could let me know, I'm kind of thinking we probably have quorum. Right?
I believe so. Bear with us just one moment to double check.
Yep, it's all good. I literally just ran in my room from a meeting, so I'm probably running at a higher speed than anybody else needs to be at this moment. And I will tell you, I'd much rather be with all you guys in Anchorage, Alaska than in Washington, DC.
Well, I tell you what, it's feeling like springtime up here. So,
Yeah,
Oh, we did get some snow today.
did
Some
you
big
really?
flakes. Yeah.
Wow. I had a jean jacket on and it was too hot. So I'm melting.
And Allison, isn't it 8 o'clock there?
Is it what?
Isn't it 8 o'clock?
It is 8 o'clock. Thank you, Taffy, for recognizing this is the reason why I look so tired. And my day started at, I had a breakfast meeting that I had to run at 7 a.m., which would be like me waking up at 3 a.m. to do it. So this is what tired Allison looks like.
Maybe it's time to turn it off. And
I didn't even know that was possible.
No, it's very possible. This is tired Allison. Whew.
Okay, we have a quorum. You can go ahead when you're ready.
awesome.
Okay, if we can pull up the agenda, then I'll start and welcome everyone. I do know that Robin is on a much needed vacation, and so she is absent from the space. But I'd like to take a moment because I do believe we have 4 or 5 new council members that have agreed to kind of fill some of our interim spots. So I see Tasha on here. Thank you, Tasha, for being here. I see Carrie, who is one of our ex officio positions. I see Taffy, and I'm trying to see it. Farina, I see on here.
I'm on. Hello.
Thank you, Farina, for being in the space with us. And we have Olivia, who is also new from South Central. She hasn't gone through orientation yet. And then I think that Randy will be joining us, and Randy
Allison, sorry to interrupt, but Randy is excused. She had another meeting to attend, so she will not be joining us. And we do not have Olivia on the line yet, but we did hear that she would not be able to join us. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's all good. I just want to make sure that they feel so welcome in the space that they never want to leave the space, right? So yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the members that have stayed year after year, the Davids, the Dave Myokailes, the Rogers, the people that have continued to carry this committee through. And it's interesting when we get down to, some of the updates. I'm happy to give you a little bit of overview of what my last couple of days have been like. First in Juneau and then in Washington, D.C., which I would not advise anybody of my age doing both within a week. I do feel like that's for the younger at heart, but trying to make space for the younger at heart. So anyway, I want to welcome everyone to the September meeting of the coalition, the COC Advisory Council. And if someone could help me with the land acknowledgement. I didn't research the land, unfortunately, where I was today, or I would have been happy to present that. So if someone else could help me with the acknowledgement of the space that they're in and acknowledging the land. Don't make me call on you.
Well, I
This is
will.
Roger. I'd like to acknowledge that we gather and live on the lands of the Dena'ina Athabascan folks, that they have been the stewards of this land for thousands of years, for time immemorial, and continue to be stewards of this land. And I thank them for allowing us to be here. And I acknowledge them.
Yeah, thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Roger.
Okay, if we can pull up the agenda. Oh, a mission moment. Oh my gosh. Do we have any mission moments? I'm happy to share because I've literally listened to about 3 or 4 amazing, excellent panels of young people. And one of them actually was from Anchorage, Alaska. And she experienced homelessness in the city of Anchorage 22 years ago. And if you think about where we were 22 years ago in the space, she was 12 years old and she was too young for the services of Covenant House, who could only serve at age 13. And so she would every day come and sit at the shelter so that someone she knew was watching over her. And the McKinney Bento person who was assigned to Covenant House, Barb Dexter, became her mentor in life. And she talked about at the greatest moment in her life was when she graduated as a doctor in psychiatry, that she looked out in the audience and Barb Dexter was there. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, I was bawling, right? To realize that really it is about us creating paths for people to connect to people, and people are what makes the difference. And anybody's life. And I know definitely April, as she described how the person that was the proudest of her in her entire life was Barb Dexter. It's making me like try to find Barb Dexter's phone number to call her to say, wow, what a difference you made in someone's life who had no experience of anybody in their family having education or valuing education. So there are 4 siblings. She is a doctor, her sister is an architect, one sister is a lawyer, and one sister continues to struggle with addiction. But it was an amazing space to hear how the importance of a person, and that person was enough, right? And all the resources that we even had as an organization couldn't meet the needs of this young person. And yet she came and spoke on behalf of creating paths and interventions for young people so that they could exit the space of homelessness, and that homelessness would not define their life. So that's my mission moment.
Well, Allison, I was on the agenda for the mission moment, but that was a really good segue. And I can share that, what was it like? Did she graduate 6 years ago or so?
Yeah.
So there was a day Barb said, can you come into my office, and kind of looked a little shaken. And she said, I got to play you a voicemail. And I was afraid it was going to be some parent or something like that. But it was April inviting her to her graduation and said,
wow.
yeah, I just said, I just wanted to let you know you were a huge part of my life. And this is why I'm here. And so our whole office started crying, so.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I just want to give a little mission moment about CIT. For those of you that don't know, Child in Transition is a program of the Anchorage School District providing services to students and families that are experiencing homelessness. Our definition is much broader than HUD's, and so it includes families that are doubled up, couch surfing, those types of situations. And what we're really trying to do is provide school stability so that while those families are bouncing around Anchorage, they can continue to go to the same school they started the year in. So we do a lot of transportation support. We do a lot of other things as well. Academic support. We have a classroom down at Covenant House serving youth. And we do a lot of referrals to community partners that are on this call as well. But I did want to share one thing. I was kind of looking at some of our students today, and one student that we've worked with this year, they have given us 15 different addresses. And that's since kind of mid-August. They've stayed with many different family and friends. They've stayed in hotels. They've stayed in the emergency cold weather shelter. And so they just bounced around a ton. But one of the students who's a high school student has missed 2 days of school the entire year. And he missed the first 2 days. And so since the third day of school, even though his family has been living all over Anchorage, sleeping on couches and floors, they've got their students to school every day. And hopefully it'll be a success story like April's, where he'll continue to move on and do some great things in his life. So that's a little bit about CIT and our mission moment.
I will say I jumped on the Department of Education bandwagon and went and talked to some people here while I was here that talked about just the value of those programs, and that system disruption affects everyone, right? And so I wore a department, a DOE hat today that I've never worn before, that I proudly wore, and walked in there with April, and she did much better than I ever would have. Talked about the value of what that did for her. So just FYI. Okay. So at this point, what we do is we either approve or we add onto our agenda. So if I could ask the council members, are there any, can I get an approval for the January meeting minutes and approval of the agenda? If there are things that we can add, we can definitely add. But at this point, I'm just asking for a board member or council member to approve the consent agenda.
Also move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I think there was something that we were talking about possibly adding to the agenda.
I think I see Will and Jessica's hand up. So
This is Jessica. I was going to reference the same thing Roger did, but then also ask if somebody would entertain a motion, I can't make it, to move my report and my section to the top of that little box that it's in right now. I've lost it twice now in the meeting, and so I'd love to get my report out of the way, just in case I lose it completely.
Roger, I so move.
Yep, and Will?
I'll second. And I have the same, well, the first part of the comment of adding on to the agenda what we had discussed over email.
Okay. So if Mitch or Emily, if you guys can help me keep track of that so that we make sure that we're sensitive to reports, that'd be great. Okay, well, let's dive in. So I think on
Do we need to move the consent agenda?
I thought we got a first and a second.
We got a first and a second to add a topic to the agenda.
Can you remind me what that topic was and where it goes?
Yvonne has.
It was the, per our email earlier today, from the National Low Income Housing Coalition.
I'm not picking anything up what you just said.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Budget and advocacy for that moving forward, and not being delayed.
So
hope I don't have spotty
So
internet.
the,
So if somebody else could track that,
National
then that
Low
would be great.
Now I'm starting to wonder if it isn't me, but this is Jessica. I can share. So what that particular topic was, there's been 2 conversations happening via email with the executive committee about 2 separate requests by some national advocacy agencies to sign on to 2 separate supports. One is Representative Peterson in California, and that is urging Congress to take action to ask HUD to release the COC funds. We are very fortunate in this situation that none of our COC grants are set to start prior to July. The delay has not had a negative effect on our COC, but there are COCs across the United States, including our Balance of State COC here in Alaska, that have grants that were starting as early as January 1st. So these delays are causing those agencies to have to cover those expenses out of pocket and cross their fingers that something crazy won't happen and those funds will actually be awarded and they'll actually get them. So that was the first one. And then the second one was something that just came out today, and it was the National Low Income Housing Coalition, I think is what the C stands for in it. And I don't have that one in front of me and just skimmed it this morning, but I believe the gist of it was to really push back against the actions that are being taken by the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as people are referring to it, particularly to HUD, without taking into account any kind of feedback on the effect of those cuts on the individual government agencies and how that might affect the grantees. I can share that for our continuum of care funds, one big concern it is that HUD performs some functions for our grantees that only they can perform. And so if their staffing is not available to support things like monitoring or inspections, that is going to create a bottleneck and a real challenge for our grantees. So really, both of the requests are just asking Congress to really take a stand for the input of their constituents and the input of our programs when it comes to how some of these funding cuts and personnel cuts are being enacted.
Well, you know, I would make a motion to sign on. I mean, I'm in the space and I'm learning every day. And each sites are definitely affected differently, right? Like we're not a country that everything affects us all in the same way. And, I was assured by our federal delegation that, if we identify an issue and we have a particular, we have a path forward with them, but we also, as a community, participate in coalitions and various things. And if we see their effect on us or the population that we serve, there's not a negative consequence to participating in sign-ons that are demonstrating collaborative effects. So I would entertain a motion to, and myself approve, but I can't make that motion, but I would entertain a motion to approve both signing of the Anchorage COC on both of those coalition documents.
So moved. This is Roger.
Do I have a second? Will, is your hand up for a second or a question? Because we do call the question. Okay, go ahead.
This is a point of information. Like, what is is the ask ultimately just like sign on to a letter, something that's already existing, or is it to draft in, like to draft and sign a letter that we do? I'm supportive either way. I'm just curious what the particular action item is. Just signing on
sign on to a draft that already exists. So it is a letter of that they're collectively sending to all members of their perspective, like the National Alliance, various we're all members as a COC. And so they're asking all of us to take a stand in solidarity. So we're not having to
Opportunity
write
to
it.
see the letter?
Excuse me?
Do we have an opportunity to see the letter?
Yes. I think that it went around too with the emails, right?
Yes, but I'm not sure if the new members maybe were on
Okay.
it. I will forward that out.
Yeah, we can get that right out to you. We can kind of delay that till the end of the meeting, but know that we want to take action if that would work for people.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So if the powers to be can make sure that the new members have an opportunity to get a copy of it. I know I've seen it, so I don't know if I just saw it as a part of the executive committee. But if you could send it out to this membership or those participating in this meeting, then we can finalize that vote by the end of the meeting. Does that work for people?
This is Ivana. I'll go ahead and send it out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we go to, wow, our special presentation. Go ahead, Jed.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you for the work that you do and the service that you do in our community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, can everyone hear me? I have my own laptop muted. I'm just using the audio in the room here.
Sounds good in DC.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So I'm presenting here on Municipality of Anchorage, our HUD grants and how that interacts with the homelessness prevention and response system. So we can go ahead to the next slide. I'm Jed Drolet, Community Systems Program Manager. I oversee the municipality's entitlement HUD grants. Next slide. Okay, so AHD, Anchorage Health Department is the department within the municipality of Anchorage that manages our entitlement HUD grant programs. There's 3 of these that we do regularly and one additional one that we sometimes do. Community Development Block Grant or CDBG, Home Investment Partnerships Program, Emergency Solutions Grant or ESG, and sometimes National Housing Trust Fund, which is a sub-grant to us from AHFC. That's an entitlement to the state that they sometimes sub-grant to us. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to show a little bit about the amounts of funding that we typically get. This is the past 5 years of entitlement funding for CDBG, Home, and ESG. We have not gotten a housing trust fund in these years, although we are planning to ask for it for 2026. We typically get about a little less than $2 million in CDBG each year, about 1.9, 1.8 million, about 600,000 or 700,000 in home, and about 150 to 166 or so thousand in ESG. You'll see that these vary year to year, and there's not a consistent pattern. It's not that they regularly go up or down each year. There's a formula that is applied based on a number of factors, including the cost of living and the size of the population and various other factors that go into those calculations. And so HUD does those calculations based on the allocations that Congress makes in the appropriations bills each year. And we don't really have any way to predict how much we're going to get until those amounts are released, which is typically in the spring of the program year. So we are waiting on our 2025 allocations at this point. We don't yet know what those are going to be. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our goals. We have a planning process, which I'm not going to go into detail in this presentation. I have presented on it at various other points. For those of you who have seen some of my other presentations, let's go to the next slide. And I'm just gonna do kind of a high level overview of what our primary goals are in allocating our funds. And this kind of goes into our planning process each year when we do our action plan for HUD. Our primary goals are housing and services, consistent with the priorities in the anchored home plan. And our allocation is generally designed to meet this priority as much as possible within the constraints that we are operating under, which I'll mention a little bit. And the various rules that govern what we can do with each of these funding sources. Each of our grant programs has its own set of regulations under the Code of Federal Regulations, and we're bound to comply with those. But we try to meet these goals as best we can within that framework. Next slide, please. So this is a graphic that I'm sure you are all very familiar with. It shows the continuum between homelessness prevention and homelessness response. And our programs really hit pretty much all of the different points along this part of the continuum to various degrees. And so, you know, we work on homelessness prevention, and that's primarily on the retention side, but to some extent also on some of the prevention and diversion. And then in the homelessness response, we do outreach, we do emergency shelter, transitional housing, supportive housing, rapid rehousing to some extent, and then construction and rehab of independent affordable housing is also a part of what we often find. Next slide, please. So the constraints that we're operating under, you know, we do the best we can to meet these goals within some constraints. And so one of the big ones is tight timelines. Allocations are typically announced in the spring. As I mentioned, we're still waiting on our 2025 allocations to be announced. The action plan must be submitted to HUD each year by August 16th. And that's a hard deadline. It's written into statute. It can't be waived or delayed. If we don't meet it, we don't get our CDBG money for that year. So we have a pretty tight timeline in which to draft and approve the action plan. It has to go through public comment, has to be approved by the Assembly, and then it has to be submitted to HUD by August 16th. If we don't have our projects lined up by then, we have to put in a kind of a TBD line and go back later and amend the action plan to add specific projects after we've identified those. We are trying to move away from having to do that very much, and I'll mention later in this presentation a little bit about how we are trying to do that. But in recent years, there have often been delays that have meant that we've had to go back and amend the action plans to add projects later. Also limited funding, you know, it's the amount of funding we get, about $3 million a year, is just a drop in the bucket compared to its scale of the problems that we're trying to address, including homelessness as well as housing and community development issues. And then funding caps. So there's caps in some of our programs on the types of projects we can fund. One of the most important for homelessness response is that for CDBG, we can only do 15% of our annual allocation for public service projects. And homelessness response projects are often under that public service bucket. You know, direct outreach, street outreach, and shelter operations and services like that all have to fall within that 15%. It's a pretty small cut of a grant that is not that large to start with. So those are kind of the constraints we're operating within, and we have to tailor what we do to fit within those constraints. Next slide, please. Another important constraint is that where grants are on a reimbursement basis. This can be a constraint. It can also be a benefit in some respects. But and this is not the case for all HUD grantees, but for our grants, we're on a 100% reimbursement basis. So we make grants to grantees, and they spend the money and then submit to us for reimbursement, and then we submit to HUD for reimbursement. And so there can be a pretty long lag between when services are provided and when that money is actually spent, which can make it look like we have not spent as much of our HUD funding as we actually have. Now, an advantage to this is that if there are concerns about federal grants being frozen, that doesn't necessarily hold up our activities, because we're essentially already being floated by the municipality's general fund. And so when there was some talk about federal grant freezes early in this administration, we got a lot of questions from our grantees about, does this affect our grants? And basically the answer is no. If you have a grant from us through our HUD programs, we are, taking the risk basically of having you provide those services and submitting to us for reimbursement, and we will pay. And then we will take the risk of whether or not we're going to get reimbursed from HUD. It has not been a problem. We were concerned that we might have problems drawing our funds from HUD with the talk of grant freezes, but we have actually done a draw since that went into effect and then was frozen and, back and forth on that. I don't know what the current state of play is within HUD, but our draw went through. So we have been able to access our funding. But it is a constant balance between money coming in and money going out. We just had our 2024 grant loaded into the system. So we do have that money now available to go out to our grantees. And we'll be amending some of our agreements for that. Moving forward. So we are all full speed ahead basically on our current projects. And I'll talk a little bit more about the details of those in a little bit. Next slide, please. So our strategy that we're trying to move toward, and this is different from how we have often operated in the past. We're trying to do a more collaborative process. We increased our staffing, and so we staffed up our team. We're now up to 4 people plus me within our team, and then we have a couple of people in the AHD fiscal team that support us on the accounting side. Streamlining the processes, we put in place Microsoft Project and Microsoft Planner. We're doing some training and professional development and kind of trying to tighten up our timelines and make sure that we're not pushing up against some of those hard deadlines, and that we're trying to get our money out the door faster, basically, is the main thing that we're aiming at here. Next slide, please. So spending, I just want to show a few slides here with some graphs of the breakdown of the money that we have spent in our various programs in recent years, so you get a sense of the balance of this. So here's CDBG. The categories that we have here are affordable housing, public facilities, public services, and then admin/other. And you can see, and these are from our draws, and so this is the years here are based on when we actually got the money reimbursed from HUD. So the spending would have, in some cases, been a few months earlier. But basically, you can see that we do a lot of housing projects to the extent we can. CDBG has some restrictions on housing, but we try to do as much as we can within those restrictions. We do a lot of public facilities, or have in the past. That hasn't been as much of a focus now, but those are generally nonprofits doing capital projects. We do as much public services as we can. We have that 15% cap, but we try to get as much as we can into that, and we do tend to max out on it each year. The actual amounts that are shown here are not equal each year because of that draw issue, and so that we spend that whole 15% each year, but we don't always get reimbursed within that same year. And then we have an admin cut. This is our main admin financing for all of our administrative activities. At CDBG, we have a 20% admin cut. It's the highest of our grants, and it's also the largest grant. So that's where most of our money to pay our salaries and administrative expenses and indirect costs come from. Next slide, please. So this is home. So home is more housing focused specifically than CDBG. CDBG can do some housing work. Home is more specific to housing. So you can do affordable home ownership, rental housing development, tenant-based rental assistance, and then there's a small admin cut there. We have done all of these in recent years to varying degrees. Currently really kind of assessing what the best use of home is, because it's a relatively small grant for a problem that is very, very expensive. And so, I think one of the main ideas behind the home program is that CDBG can't construct new housing. Home is intended to construct new housing. We only get about $600,000 or $700,000 a year in it. That's not very much for constructing new housing in Anchorage. And so we have done some of that, but also done some of these other types of projects that might be more cost effective. We're doing an assessment of TBRA right now, tenant-based rental assistance, to kind of see where that fits into that. And we have some kind of exciting modeling and estimates that we're doing of effectiveness of programs to kind of compare different types of uses of that funding. Next slide, please. And then this is ESG. So ESG is Emergency Solutions Grant. It was originally called Emergency Shelter Grants. And so the idea behind it was originally shelter costs. It has broadened to other potential costs, but it is still pretty focused on homelessness specifically. You can see a big jump there in 2022. There was a big influx of ESG funding during COVID through the CARES Act and American Rescue Plan Act. And this was the case for some of the other grants as well, but it was particularly noteworthy for ESG because our regular ESG is very small. And so what you see in the 2024 there is more what we typically get in ESG, whereas the 3 years before that includes a lot of that one-time COVID funding. What we mostly use our ESG funds for is our homelessness prevention program through the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is part of the Anchorage Health Department. Obviously, we have used it for other purposes, rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, and homeless outreach, is particularly when we had that big influx of funding. Next slide, please. So request for grant proposals. Next slide. So this is the direction that we're going. In the past, we have had various means of selecting projects, but really the best practice for this is to do a competitive request for grant proposals. That is what we used to do quite a while ago, before my time. We had kind of gotten away from that for a few years, but we are moving back toward doing regular competitive open solicitations for grants each year for the various programs. And within that, we're trying to move toward doing fewer but larger projects, leveraging other funds, making the most effective use of funding, and targeting the biggest community needs, which generally are housing supply and supportive services, and some sort of balance between those, and particularly looking to do a transparent, competitive process for selecting projects. Next slide, please. So for 2025, this is very exciting because this is the first time in quite a long time that we have been soliciting for projects before we put out our action plan. And so we just issued a request for grant proposals for CDBG capital projects for 2025 funding. It was posted yesterday. So this is brand new. I sent it out to our email list. So if you're on that, you would have seen a notice of that. It is due March 27th. And another exciting thing about this is that the Municipal Purchasing Department has moved to an online platform called Bid Express to do solicitations like this in the future. So there's no more hard copy delivered to the purchasing office. You can do that if you want, if you're applying to this, but you don't have to. You can submit everything virtually through Bid Express. And there's a link to that in the RFGP and on the Purchasing Department website. So that's very exciting. That is a capital project solicitation for about 800,000 that were, I see the confetti there. Thanks, Allison. This is for capital projects for focusing on housing and shelter, particular projects that will increase the supply of units or beds. About 800,000 that we're expecting to get in CDBG for that purpose in 2025. So probably this, would be more like conversions of existing buildings rather than brand new construction. Although we'll see, if people have ideas for modular construction or other low cost means of constructing housing or shelter, we're definitely interested in those sorts of ideas. So, I can't answer any specific questions about that because this is an open solicitation. So all our questions have to go through purchasing, but this is open. It's out on the street. We are moving forward with getting our funds out. We will likely be doing a similar RFGP for our 2025 home money soon, and that will probably reallocate some past year's home funding as well. Still kind of deciding what we're doing about CDBG public services moving forward. So that may or may not be an RFGP, or that may go through a different process. And then once we do however many RFGPs we're going to do for 2025, we will put those projects directly into the 2025 action plan and get that approved by HUD the first time, so that we don't have to go back and amend it, and we can just roll the money out once they approve it. So that's a very exciting development that we're ahead of schedule for the first time in quite a while. Next slide, please. So for 2026 and subsequent years, we're going to continue to do this process where we put out RFGPs for these capital projects, possibly for services as well. put them out. Ideally, we would go actually before the beginning of the program year. So we'd have these go out in the fall and people would submit for money for that following year. And then that would give us a whole long period of time to go through that process before we submit our action plan. Again, we don't know our exact amounts until the spring usually, and we can't submit the plan until we know the actual amounts. So we usually can't submit it before, I think the earliest it's been in recent years is March that those have come out. They're often more like April or May. But whenever they come out, we will put the projects that we've selected into the action plan and get that through the review process and submit it to HUD. Next slide, please. So current projects. So I'm just going to go through quickly through the tables of projects that we included in the 24 action plan. We just got this money in place, and so these are just now going to be rolling out. So for CDBG, about 1.877 million. We got an admin cut. We do our mobile home repair program, which is back up and running. We got a new contract in place with Rural Cap to operate that program. So that is active again, and there's those Sting applications. We have a acquisition project for a housing project that actually is it's TBD in the 24 action plan, but we do actually have a project selected. And then we have some public services, and these are just the same grantees that we've done for the past few years in public services. And we've just been adding more money to those existing contracts or grants for choosing our routes, Rural Cap for Sitka Place and homeless outreach, New Life Development, and 9 Star. Next slide. This is our home money. We typically do a lot of projects with Habitat for Humanity with our home funding. So we've got that allocated in this one, and then a chunk for a potential housing acquisition project, and another chunk for an existing housing development project with Cook Housing Authority, Spenard East Phase 2. Next slide. ESG is smaller and simpler. We have a very small administrative cut, but primarily this goes to homelessness prevention through the ADRC. Next slide. So timeline. So go to the next slide. And we can just see kind of, this is for the 2025 action plan. We're here at the public meeting stage. We'll be, consulting with various stakeholders in the community, and then getting a draft out in spring. Probably a public comment period around late spring. Again, we've got to kind of wait until we get our allocations to do the final approvals. Assembly approval, probably early summer and midsummer submission to HUD. Next is we have consultation with a variety of groups. So HAN Commission, where we work very closely with them. They meet every month, and we typically have an update for them. ACEH and the COC, obviously we work very closely with them, and we've been meeting regularly with them and then attending meetings like this. Community councils, both federation and individual community councils, social service agencies, AHFC, and then any other interested organization that just has an interest. We get inquiries all the time from potential grantees or organizations that are interested, or just individuals that are interested in the housing, homelessness, and community development spheres. And we're happy to meet with anyone that is interested. Next slide. So that is it for my presentation. And if we have some time, I can take a few questions.
Hey, Jed, whenever you say that you have a TEV or to be determined acquisition at the 750, is it already determined, or is it still, are you still pending?
It's sort of in between for that piece for the 24 action plan. It was undetermined at the time that we submitted the action plan. Since then, we did do a request for grant proposals for those acquisition projects that included that money from the 24 action plan, and we have selected a couple of projects for that funding, and those are moving through the assembly approval process now. So they're not totally final, but the recommendations of the review committee are on their way to the assembly.
I mean, is it a private, like we can't know who they are, or is it a
I think we are at a point where, we can name them publicly, because this is gonna come to the assembly soon. So that's Cook Inlet, is doing an acquisition of a property on Baxter Road. And, Habitat for Humanity is doing an acquisition of a building to relocate their restore, are the two projects that we're funding through that process.
Great, thank you.
Will, thank you. Looks like Will has his hand up.
Yes, first off, thanks so much for joining us, Jed, and for presenting. Really appreciate it. I know one of my goals, both through the role on the advisory council, is to help foster better coordination between the different elements of our community and our system. I know Jessica refers to kind of the triangle of the COC and the Muni and AHSC as kind of the entities that receive federal funds. And so kind of the question is, how could you see the COC being helpful to the work that you all are doing? And then potentially as a piece of that, and I know we've talked a little bit offline, I chair our community priorities committee, and we're just now from our meeting this week, and so this will double as a little update. We're going to be moving into working on our gaps analysis, and I am really interested in seeing what would be useful for stakeholders as we go through that process, and welcome your participation or someone from your team, as well as HFC and the mayor's office and the coalition as we go through that. But also more broadly, how do you have thoughts on how kind of the COC and health department can kind of coordinate on this more?
Yeah, thanks. I think, just staying in communication has been the main thing. Yeah, I think, there's the potential for leveraging different resources and having both COC and our funds going into some projects, or, having different elements of projects funded by one or the other. Our money is more on the capital side, so maybe that's where we come in, and then COC can do more of the services side for some things or things like that. That's kind of where I see the potential for a lot of the coordination. I think our coordination with ACEH has been better in recent months than it had been for a while there, and so just continuing to build those relationships. And speaking of which, I see Jessica has her hand up.
On that note, I just wanted to say that I am super excited that in this last RFP, the one that we were talking about there, we were able to put into the scoring matrix bonus points for any project that proposed a homeless set-aside to allocate a certain number of units of their project dedicated to people experiencing homelessness. So I think that is awesome progress, and I continue to advocate for more of that, so that we have units available to people experiencing homelessness that aren't always available to them.
Yeah, that Cook Inlet project does have a set aside for homeless people coming directly out of homelessness. Roger.
Yeah, here, Roger in the office. The CDBG, does that from HUD, does that come through the state, or is this independent?
No,
of the
that's
state?
directly to us. We're the only community in Alaska that is an entitlement community for CDBG directly. So we get our own entitlement, and then the state gets its own entitlement, which it distributes to other communities in the state.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thanks, everybody. This has been great.
Thanks, Jed. Thanks for presenting. Very thorough job. Okay, well, I'm not going to welcome the new members again. So we've done that. So we're going to move Jess up as we promised, so that she could do her report first.
Thank you. I will keep my report very quick. I think I've been keeping the whole group apprised via emails. The COC grantees and the advisory council, as we have updates from the government. We still do not have COC awards, so that is still something that is pending. We also have no news on COC builds. And I sent an AAQ to HUD and asked someone locally here if they had heard anything, and everything is a bit hush-hush on that. I will share, if you engage regularly with HUD TA, 3 large HUD firms had their TA contracts canceled yesterday. I was presenting down here at NAEH yesterday with David Canavan, who has been a great HUD disaster TA advisor to Anchorage. And his organization was one of the canceled contracts. So we are still hoping to bring him up for the conference or convening next month. So if you regularly engage with HUD TA, that is something that I would watch for updates. And there have been some regular convenings that have now been canceled since there is no TA support for them. Government updates. That's is new and exciting, I guess. Coordinated entry update. I want to invite Laura to fill in anything that I miss here, but as I shared, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, there are some updates that needed to be made to our coordinated entry prioritization, particularly around adherence or compliance with Fair Housing and the Older Americans Act. Our HUD TA advised us that in light of some of the changes that are happening at the federal level around executive actions and focus on anything that might be conceived as equity, that we think about making those changes sooner rather than later, converting to a prioritization that takes us fairly simply been using prior to our current prioritization, which is prioritization based on length of time homeless, and then set our committee to doing some research and looking at what a long-term prioritization policy would look like that is in compliance with all executive orders and also Fair Housing and the Older Americans Act. So there is a letter that I think may have been distributed already that outlines that recommendation, and we would just be looking for an approval from the advisory council to adopt that new prioritization. And then we can work with ICA to make that effective for the next.
All right. Jessica, did we lose you?
Nope, I was just being quiet, waiting to see if there were any questions. I think what would be in order would be a motion to make that change.
Hey, Jessica, since we have our retreat as the advisory council on like the 17th, is this something that could wait until the 17th? I think, while I appreciate the TA advice, I think that there are a couple of things that hopefully as a community, we can come to some conclusion with some of our DEI work. It's not a service that we're providing, it's who we are, right? And I think that if it would not cause any undue stress, I would hope that we could take it up and have a little more in-depth conversation about the implications of any of those type of actions on the 17th. Is that going to cause any unintentional consequences by waiting until the 17th if we have as a group commit to that conversation on the 17th?
I am not sure if there's any. I would recommend if you do that we hold off on making any referrals during that interim time frame too, since the coordinated entry committee did meet and make that recommendation as a committee.
I actually see Laura who worked through it with the committee. So if the committee is making the recommendation, then I think I would entertain the motion from Laura and take it to vote.
Yeah, I would definitely move to just approving this update as almost an interim update, just so that we can make sure that we are in line with any kind of fair housing or HUD regulations in the interim. And
Okay.
then we plan on working through creating a new subset of ideas on how we can somebody help with the word. Prioritize, thank you,
Yeah.
sorry. How we can prioritize the individuals that we're serving through coordinated entry.
Got it. So we have a motion then on the table from our coordinated entry committee to approve these recommended changes.
I'll
Do I have
second.
a second?
I think I was Will that seconded.
Okay. So do we have any questions? Okay, if we can vote on that. Members can do thumbs up, or we could do a roll call. Maybe the easiest, if anybody states any objection or interest in declining to participate in the vote. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Thumbs up. I'm a thumbs up. Do we have the vote? Okay, whoever can see the whole screen, do we have enough? Do we have enough on the vote? I'm like seeing little baby cubes of people.
Yeah, and this is Emily. I think the whatchamacallit, why don't folks just add into the, or actually you could just do a vocal one, because the thumbs up keeps getting put away or keep disappearing. Sorry, words are hard today. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, I'll
could
start.
just-
Allison, yes.
Roger, yes.
Farina, yes.
Sharon. Oh, Sharon, yes.
Sam, yes.
Laura, yes.
Will, yes.
Tashi abstain.
I think we have Tasha, but I think she's heading to she's in LA. I don't want to vote for her, but maybe she voted in the chat. Okay. Okay, I think the motion carries.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that forward, Jess. Thank you for your update. Any other operational updates you need to provide?
No, if anyone has any questions, that leave on an email. I want to make sure you have time for the rest of your agenda.
Okay. Governance charter amendment. Is that being brought forward by the compliance committee?
I'm not aware of that.
No, so this is regarding the ex officios. Sorry, this is Emily. That was the document that was presented during the executive committee meeting that we were asked to make updates per guidance from the executive committee, which we did, and then we provided the updated version of this ex officio governance charter amendment in the meeting packet, which should be available to everybody. And we just need the members to review and approve this for due diligence purposes, as we now have ex officios on our council.
Got it. I don't know that the one thing is, Chair, I don't think I get to make the motion. So if I have a motion from a member, I'll second it.
Roger, a motion? Is there a motion?
I'll second it. Do we have any questions about the the charter, we never had spaces for the ex officios. And so now this has created the opportunity for us to have ex officio within the public housing and within the municipality. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Let's just
Aye.
all say aye at the same time. Aye.
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 I guess I should officially say any opposition so that we can record it. And then we can call you back later. No, just kidding. Okay, I think we have enough for that motion to carry as well. Welcome to our two ex officio positions. The NHSDC conference, that is the data conference that's happening in New Orleans. And I believe that Will is going and representing. I think we have a member of our team going, but I believe that Will is participating in the scholarship. Is that correct?
I think so. I think that's where we're at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a conference that will help us as a community learn and understand best practices in the use of data from other communities. And it also happens to be happening during Art Fest, our music fest. So we'll have a great time and enjoy your time in New Orleans for that one. And be sure to bring back any and all information that helps us be a better COC and in service of the people that we serve. That'd be great. Spring retreat update. Our agenda is becoming 9 hours that will happen in a 4-hour period of time. It's happening on the 17th of March. It's being facilitated by Michael Fredericks. I am working hard with the other chair who happens to be in Africa, I think right now, but we're working hard to get an agenda and get the information out to everybody a week in advance of the retreat. I have been kind of sending Michael a note to see, and I wanted to ask if the will of the body might be to push the meeting. It was to start at noon, from like noon to 4. And if there's any chance that we can do like a 1 to 5, only because there are several amazing members in our community that are being recognized to join the Athena Society, one of which is actually Meg. And so in honor and celebration to participate in that, I'm asking if there is a way that we can kind of cut the time a little bit so that at least we can support and acknowledge some of our outstanding community members who have dedicated time and service. So does anybody have a huge issue with making that from noon to a 1 o'clock start on the 17th?
Roger, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too. It's Sharon. I think that actually works better for me also.
Okay. Well, I'm working hard and we'll get with the executive committee of the council to firm up the agenda. Basically, our goal is to come out of that retreat in alignment with Anchored Home and any kind of adjustments that we need to be making to our strategic plan, as well as making it an actionable plan that we all understand, and any other kind of information that we need to update to make us an effective group as a council. And there's 1 or 2 that are going to missing, but I'm very happy to say that we have the vast majority of our council members able to attend. And so I'm looking forward to a St. Patty's Day with all my closest of COC friends. Okay, committee reports. So Laura, I see that you have to run. I'm sure your committee is what put forward the alignment with coordinated entry. So that's probably your update. Is there any other committees that need to provide an update to the group?
The compliance committee, just that I am hoping my co-chair is able to attend the retreat. And we're looking forward to the new membership and reorganizing to a more distinct goal process. So that's the update for the compliance.
And one of the big things that we're really going to be talking about is, kind of going to this 2-year cycle. We're on a 1-year clip and we can be on a 2-year clip. And so it's how do we function as a structure that does a lot more work in committee, and then as a board, we're really coming together with all of our actionable items. So that definitely is going to be part of the retreat discussion. Otherwise, it feels like we just met on all committees and it's time to meet again. So
Will has his hand up.
Oh, Will, go ahead.
I had mentioned this earlier, but we are going to be in the Community Priorities Committee moving towards reviewing the gap analysis and updating it. So I certainly welcome everyone's participation who might be interested in, the gap analysis is something that requires a community to do. And I want to, use that container of the committee to kind of look at where the gaps exist and trying to take a holistic approach and including kind of different information, what is keeping people, utilizing information from surveys during the point in time count and otherwise, like, not just the numbers of, beds to the need, but also, thinking about kind of other factors, pet policies, et cetera, that we can get a holistic view of what our needs and gaps are. And so certainly welcome everyone's participation in that. And we'll kind of begin diving into that in our next meeting, which will be in at this point, a week and a half. Let me pull up the calendar. That'll be March.
Week and a half, it sounds like March 17th.
10th, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, so hope to get more people to participate, and we love that.
And one of the things that I think we're gonna definitely work on in that meeting is that, all of our committees, any person, how do we cast a wide enough net that gets the community involved in it, right? It doesn't need to be filled with people that all sit on the council as council members, right? It's our job to figure out how we can move from that model that we've kind of got ourselves stuck in to a very community participatory kind of response. So definitely community priority. There's some people that I know in the community, Thea and various people that have done some amazing work in this space that we just need to make sure that as you're discussing it, Will, we got to figure out how to make sure that we're casting a broad enough net that people see their welcome and their contribution that they can add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone has any thoughts of people who would be good to add, I'm always welcoming additional folks, and want to make sure that we have space at the table for anyone interested and who wants to contribute. And I'm glad that Thea and Farina have been there from the mayor's office, and
Yeah.
I've welcomed their participation. And Jed, I'd love to have you there too, and would continue to expand the table as I hear names.
Okay, yeah, just send me an invite and I can be there.
Okay, I think that's the update from that. The one thing that I would say, and I know that we are, at a time kind of boundary, and I see various members having to kind of jump off. I am in DC, and if there was something that I could wonderfully say to impart wisdom on all of you, I would right now, except to say that we actually have an amazing federal delegation that is responsive, and we're not alone in this, and they see the craziness of what's happening. And as much as we can be specific on incidences where decisions are now affecting us, then I think we definitely have a team that is willing to investigate, you know, and try to rectify some of these situations that are, it's hard to explain what's happening. And the one thing that I would also say is, I'm not sure how anybody can live in DC. Out of 124 television channels on my hotel room, 123 are news related. And so it is a deluge of contradictory information based on what channel you listen to. And so there is a lot more speculation, but there's also a lot of definitive actions that could cause harm. And I'm continuing to see spaces where the one thing that's not thought through, maybe could be thought through a little better, is that it's people in government that help make things happen, right? And so eliminating our TAs, eliminating our people that may seem to be waste to some, they're not waste to us, right? And they are who help us make things happen in our community. And so as long as we are, you know, specifically continuing to raise that, right? There's no government that issues the awards or contracts. It's people within the government. And so I'm definitely seeing the need to be an advocate for people in spaces that have helped us be a stronger COC. And we'll be on the sword for that one, and helping out our colleagues, CDBG and some of the other ones that have been big targets. You know, and you're right, they are pushing it. There's now a lot more conversations about legal actions that can be taken by House or by Congress or by the Senate when appropriations have been approved and then awards and the money is not dispensed. So, you know, I think we're not, I wish that I would be learning that tomorrow we'll know what's going to happen kind of thing. But, you know, it's going to be lawyers that might duke out a lot of this, and hopefully it's good lawyers on our side. And the ones that I've talked to are great. So, you know, let's keep ourselves as a community. Let's talk to each other about what are problems that we're facing. It's not just affecting homeless space, even though it feels like in our conversation it is. There's some dramatic effects on domestic violence. There's dramatic effects on education. You know, it's literally every system. And so, and we don't do our work alone in isolation in a system. And that is something that the way that we're going to not just survive, but maybe thrive would be if we stay as a community. And so trying to create spaces for all of that. So I know that we're over time. Do we have any closing comments or things that need to be shared that are time sensitive?
We need a vote on the letters.
Oh, got it.
I'd move the question, move the vote on those.
Okay,
Roger, I'll second.
I approve.
Roger, I'll second.
Some of our new members, were you able to review them?
Yes. Thank you for sending that over.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed or wishing to abstain? Okay. So we will be listed not as individuals, we'll be listed as the Anchorage COC.
Unanimous.
Okay. Good news is I get to leave DC tomorrow. So there you go. I'm celebrating.
You get to
Thanks,
come home?
everyone. Be safe,
Bye.
Allison.
Okay. You guys have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
That's nice. Great. All right. So I'll get those.